5 factions. That's our faction. We have the military faction. Nice. And then you have basically the alien race is divine. Very love drafting. Slicing guys. Not only do I speak games, slicing characters. And then we've got the 5th faction, which is the second one. They're actually fantasy.
Oh, wow. Okay, that's great.
That's our gyrocopter. We had to do it.
That's just great.
Post-apocalyptic, we had to do the gyrocopter. We had to do the Mad Max car. We had to do the Death Race car.
Awesome, it's the last of the Intercept.
Yes.
Go.
All right. Welcome to Plus 10 to Awesome. We're here with Tony, and he's going to explain a couple of games that he's running. What's the name of your company?
Aberrant.
Aberrant Games.
Based out of San Diego.
And we're actually filming over one of the tables that he has over here. There's going to be some other footage of that too. And we're talking about, let's talk about this game first. What's it called?
This is called Rezolution.
Rezolution. It looks very sort of cyberpunk, and I'm looking at some of the models that look like security forces, and there's some like anime type models over here. Why don't you tell us about the setting of this game?
Okay, it's based in 2175. It's a very corporate-controlled world. Basically, the CSO, which is the military faction for Rezolution, these are basically your world police. They're trying to keep law and order in the world. We've got colonies out in space. It's a very fiction-orientated game. We've got a lot of, our second book we brought out covered the period of a month, of January 2175, the events that happened in the world. You can play the game, play the assignments, and read through the fiction and play through it. You can play it as a standalone game as well. Some of the other factions, the Japanese anime inspired faction, APAC, they're a big corporation, Asia Pacific. They're very, they've got craft powers. Call it psychic powers. Humans have evolved since the millennium's changed over. Craft powers are starting to emerge in humans. So they're very very Japanese inspired.
So you have badass psychically enhanced martial artists and all kinds of really cool.
They can things like ride the storm, fire lightning art coming out of their fingers. So some of the characters made that. There's also an alien-inspired faction called Divine. Very Lovecraftian. They're basically an alien race that crash landed on the Earth in the 12th century. They've been, basically ever since they got to the Earth, they've been dying. Their bodies can't take our atmosphere. And they try and escape the Earth, they're basically stuck. And they're trying to harvest human organs to replace their own.
Oh, wow.
So they're very skulking in the shadows, like with their claws attacking people in close combat, harvesting organs, basically.
Right.
So that's that. There's also the Ronin, which are street gang cyberpunk. They're very specialist. They're like, you've got really good shooters, you've got very good fighters, and they can be classed as, or they are classed as mercenaries. So they can be used within the other factions. 25% of your army force can be mercenaries. You can hire in Ronins. If your mission is for the hacking side of things, which is the working the grid, the computer side of things, hire in a Ronin hacker because they're better than your standard hackers. So you use them as
so you'd hire a mercenary hacker
to try and fulfill the objective for the mission.
So do you have any pre-made objectives for the game? Do you have scenarios, stuff like that?
There are some in the book, in the core rule book, but also in Outbreak, which is the second book that came out, which introduced the Valicina, the 5th faction. It also has a 10-story mission. Basically, you read the story, you read the fiction, and you play out the mission. You can play them as standalone as well, but there's a whole series, and they cover all the factions as well. So you can read through the fiction and work out the events that happened in that period of time. So
that's pretty great, because we always like narrative-driven type of games, because it makes you feel more involved. And when you're looking at a guy and Marshall, it's like, this is my Marshall, and this is his story, and this is what he does.
The way that I play, when I play games, I want to know why I'm doing something. I don't just want to play. I want to know why are these characters there? What are they actually doing? That's the way that Rezolution can build.
It's not just an objective, it's something that you need to do for a specific reason, and I find that much more fulfilling in the game. It makes me want to succeed more. Yeah.
We also do an online magazine called Data Day. It's not on a regular schedule, we do it when we've got stuff to put out. It's a free magazine, it's downloadable. In that we put our players will send in missions, we'll publish those in that magazine, and we'll put things out. It's totally free download. Recently we just put one out which has the CSO, the thing called the MIU, the Mechanised Infantry. It's totally free. We put out all the stats for the MIU in that magazine. We can use the normal CSO models to run them as an MIU. So you've got the mechanised robot.
So he's like a robot.
Yeah, so you can redo the CSO and that's put in the data for free basically.
Alright, so you actually have a resource for players to go in there and find new content and stuff like that. That's really great.
And we've got 2 new figures coming out in the next week. So there's 2 new figures of Rezolution coming out, plus more for the other game.
And you said that Ironwind produces your medals. Ironwind, same guys that produce all of your BattleTech minis. They also have Cyberpunk and other types of stuff. You should check them out at ironwindmedals.com. Really great company. I've had a lot of really good contact with them. These models look great. They're really nice sculpts. I mean, in general, they're some of the coolest cyberpunk type models I've seen. This guy totally looks like Blade Runner. Huge pistol, full on. And why don't you tell us generally how the gameplay goes and systemically how the game works?
Okay, basically, the basic system is a 2d6 plus an attribute to do anything. So on the cards that you use, every figure has a stat card. So all the stats you need to play are on this card. So to actually move, you move whatever the stat is.
Static movement is in inches.
Yes. If you're trying to shoot at someone, you'd roll 2d6 and add your RCA stat. One thing we wanted with Rezolution, we didn't want a game that basically you're sitting down moving all your figures and the other person's having to wait. With Rezolution, you're involved the whole time. We have what we call the opposed roll, it's the SAG roll. Every character or model has a SAG, it's called size and agility. So if you're shooting at one of his models, you roll 2d6 and add your RCA, or range combat ability. He'd roll 2d6 and add the SAG. If he beats your score, he's dodged the bullet. He's dived out the way.
So you're not sitting with static target numbers to hit things, you're actually doing opposed rolls.
You're actually doing opposed roll. And it means the people who are involved, even when it's not your turn, you're rolling the opposed roll to see how you do it. We wanted Rezolution to be it's not static, it's people are diving out the way. It's dodge the bullet.
That's right, dodge the bullet.
If someone's going to shoot at you, you're not going to stand there and wait for them to shoot. You're going to try and get out the way. The opposed roll gives you that ability. There's various other things like, or CCA is the same thing, 2d6 adds your CCA.
And that's close combat.
That's close combat ability. All models have armour. Damage in Rezolution is brutal. If you get hurt, your damage gauge is on the card. As you mark off damage points, there are minuses. Those minuses come off your stats.
And they're cumulative, right? So if you have one box at a -1, then you take a second one and another -1, you're at a total of -2, right?
Actually, most of them will go to the minus, whichever one you've gone to. Most of them go -1, then -2. So
okay.
If you go to -2, then you're -2.
Or you stay at -1. So basically, whatever the card says you're at, that's the -2.
That's the number you're at.
And you take that minus to every single one of your stats,
yes.
right?
Apart from things like hack and craft, because they tend to be abilities rather than physical things. So all the physical stuff like movement, range combat, close combat, your SAG, your body doesn't change, your body is what's underneath. But to show how brutal Rezolution is, if you've got a weapon that is 66, so you have a 66 weapon, you look on the card to see what their armour is. So their armour is 2. So take 2 dice away.
Alright.
Some weapons have a penetration value, P value. If they have a P value, whatever that value is, you put those dice back. So if his armour was 2 and you had a P1 weapon, you put the dice back. Alright. What you're rolling against on each individual dice is the body value of your target. Most humans have a body of 3. There are some characters with a body of 2. Some of the hackers only have a body of 2. They spend all their life on computers. They're not really physically fit. Average is 3. So you roll the dice. Any dice that has a 3 value, 3 or more, causes a point of damage. So for that hit, that was 4 points of damage. The 1 doesn't count. The 6 explodes. You roll it again. 4, that's now 5 points of damage in that one shot. Most characters have 5 or 6 points of damage they can take. So you get hit, you're going to be damaged, you're going to be hurt. The minuses start to come into play, your characters get wounded, they get weaker. So it's a very brutal game. If you stand up and just walk across the table, the chances are you're going to die.
Let's see if you're smart enough to get behind cover. Is there a cover mechanism?
Yes, there is. When you go behind cover, if you're within an inch of cover, you basically get the cover. What we're looking at is you're basically standing against the wall, you're holding in, you're trying to make yourself small.
Right.
So there's a minus to shooting at you.
Okay.
You also get, when you get shot, you get an armor bonus because you're behind cover. Some of the weapon will take.
So using the terrain in this game is actually very important, because if you're out in the open, you're pretty much hosed. And I can see, because I'm looking at these weapon values, and most of these things have a considerable amount of dice to roll against you. So yeah, you can get killed in one shot really easy,
And
even if you're a hardcore
with the
man.
exploding dice, if even when you roll it again, if it gets another 6, you explode it again. So it keeps exploding. So
Somebody could throw a knife at you, and you still explode 6s, and you're caught in the eye, and you're dead.
there are some characters like the Marshal who have an ability called Legendary. He's what I call the Tony. He's like the hero in the movies who gets shot to pieces but still manages to get up and take a shot. Whenever he dies, he's got a 50-50 chance of staying on the board. He still takes the minuses, but you roll his dice. If you get a 4, 5 or 6, it's okay. He can get up and carry on moving. So you've got this character, and he's one of the leaders. He's like the leader of the Marshals and the big guys in charge.
So army composition-wise, you're talking, you have a leader. I see you have like some kind of combo specialist over here. You have some troops. You have a leader guy.
Yeah.
Are there rules for how you have to compose your army? You have to have a leader.
Most of them will, mostly factions have one main character. For the APAC, it's the Aberrant. He's like one of their leaders. For CSO, it's the Marshal. You tend to have one of those. They have leadership abilities. So when you have things like morale tests, if you're within close proximity to your leader, you're a bit your characters are buoyed up. They're a bit braver. They use his nerve, because his leadership. You're okay. If he dies, then these guys start to get a bit panicky.
Right.
How it works is you have a leader. If you have a team, like CSO are like your basic troopers, these are your basic team. They're minimum of 4, they can go up to 10. They have to stay within 3 inches of each other. That's their unit coherency. Independents like this guy can act on their own. They can go wherever they want. They don't have to stay with their unit. You could choose to play it that this is part of this team and they become one team.
So you can attach individuals,
You can attach
to units.
There's like sergeants that can go with these as well. You've got special weapons attachments with flamethrowers or shotguns that can be attached to special weapons to this unit. But there are lots of independents. You mentioned Blade Runner. We've got characters called Rangers. One of those guys is inspired by Blade Runner. He basically is a covert. He can go out anywhere. He can't be attacked until he does something hostile.
Okay.
So he can wander around.
So super stealth unit.
It's like get in there, do things. We have peacekeepers, which are like your specialist troops in CSA. They've got snipers who can go on top of buildings and snipe out people. So you've got some, and all the other factions have all their own specialist troops as well. The thing with Rezolution is what the extra figures give you is not you need them all to play the game. They are tactical choices. You can pick the players that are their strengths from different characters and give you more options when you're playing the game.
And I see that you have point values for all of the models. So the scenarios that you build or get out of the book will have a point value of units that you're going to
The starter box averages around 200 to 250 points. For most of the factions, that's 5 or 6 figures. So it's not a huge, it's a skirmish game. But the beauty of it, it scales. I mentioned we played a 12-player game at Origins. You play, it scales up to a bigger, and it stays just as fast. The other thing I didn't mention is the alternating turn. When you activate one of your characters or team, then your opponent activates, then it comes back to you. So you alternate. So not only are you rolling your turn, it comes back to you very quickly. You can react to what's going on the table. It's very much a very tactical game.
Very cool. Yeah, I really prefer the alternating activation versus like I move everything and shoot everything. Because you fit like, I want to go get myself a drink and be back and I got that.
But also you can react. If your tactic was to get over here and suddenly he comes walking around there, you can divert someone in your next activation to try and cover that threat.
Right.
So it's more realistic.
Yeah, and if you move somebody and you're not really particularly watching what the other enemy's doing, you may have put yourself into cover against the guys that you really mean they're a threat. But there's another guy over there who also has a shotgun that might also wheel out behind you and you got no cover in your own.
One of the other things with Rezolution is you shoot the closest target, or the closest, we call it the closest threat. Basically, if there's a guy on the ground unconscious, he's not a threat anymore, you can ignore it. But if there's a guy with a big gun who's behind some others, if you want to shoot him, you have to make a nerve check. Are you brave enough to ignore the guy who's closest to you to take out the bigger target? So you have this morale and nerve type test as well.
And you have a system where you actually screen certain units and put them in a situation where you can be more advantageous later on in the game. Instead of just picking out all your special weapons and then your counters. That's really cool. Okay, where's your game available? Do you have a website?
We have a website. It's www.aberrantgames.com.
Alright.
We have a full store on there. As I said, there's about 110 stores for Rezolution already. The core rulebook is available through us also on Wargame Vault as PDF format. So we do a lot of our stuff on PDF format on the Wargame Vault, which is part of the Drive for RPG.
Well, there's a link right through RPG. There'll be a link also to Aberrant games, so you guys can check it out on our site. Let's move on to the next game over here. What do you got over here? Because this looks pretty exciting and big.
This is Warlands. This is a post-apocalyptic Hollywood road movie on a tabletop. Basically, think Mad Max, think Death Race, think any of the Hollywood post-apocalyptic road movies. That's what we wanted to create for here. Basically, the scale of the vehicles are the same scale as Hot Wheels and Matchbox. We took a decision that we know that you can get hundreds of vehicles out there, everybody's got them. So what we basically do, we produce the ones that you can't get anywhere else. We produced the gun truck. We've produced the Maxwell, which people who know the Mad Max movie will be quite recognising. We had to produce what we call the Valiant, which is very similar to the Death Race car. Yeah. We produce the vehicles you can't get anywhere else. We've got a gyrocopter, which you can have flyers in the game. We've got bikes, we've got buggies, we've produced buggies. We've produced Walker as well. There's a Walker who basically walks, think of a scrapman, it's like the Alien Parallel. Right. It's kind of that sort of walking thing. So basically, and the other one that's in there is the Sand Surfer. Basically, think of a surfboard with wheels with an engine and a harpoon on the front. That guy can be dragged behind other vehicles with a harpoon, can reel himself in, drop limpet mines, back off again, and fly off around the thing.
So it's like a fast harasser. That's really great.
Things don't always work in Warlands as you'd expect. There's things in here. It's a Hollywood road movie, but it's also, you're talking about things out in the wasteland. So guys on the back of buggies, you shoot a rocket launcher. There's a high possibility that rocket could go anywhere. So when you miss and you deviate from source. It doesn't deviate from the target like those things. It will deviate. He's basically on the back of a buggy with a homemade rocket.
Things bouncing up all over the place.
He could even be holding it backwards. You just never know. Yeah. So rockets can deviate anywhere. Vehicle-mounted weapons do deviate from source. They're more directed. They're solid. They're not going to bounce around so much. Again, it's what we've done with Warlands is we've produced a system to try and make a very smooth movement across the table. So we have stat cards, all in the book. We have a core rule book, which is available in print format off Wargame Vault, as well as PDF format. In the back are all the stats for the vehicles. How it works is every vehicle, all vehicles have either a speed band, slow or stationary slow, cruising or fast. On the stats it says what's the minimum distance you have to travel at that speed band, what's the maximum distance you can travel. So if he was going at cruising, he's got to travel a minimum distance in his activation. How we get the smooth movement, because what we didn't want is this jerky movement across the table, we wanted a smooth flowing. they have at each speed band there's a compulsory movement which says how many inches you have to move before you turn. Or
Do you have to designate at the beginning of the turn what speed that they're moving at?
how it works is when you start the game, everything starts at cruising. At the end of your activation, you can say, I'm going to accelerate to fast, or I'm going to decelerate to slow, or I'm going to stay at cruising. We actually produce some counters you can download for free. You can mark what speed you want, or you move the stat card you have and you can mark it on there. But how it works is he activates. He has to move his compulsory movement in a straight line. So the thing to remember is if you ended up your turn facing something, you're going to hit it. And sometimes you end up facing things without even meaning to. So you move the compulsory. At that point, you can either carry on straight, or you could choose to move up to 45 degrees. If you choose to move, just pivot from the back up to 45 degrees, then you've got to do your compulsory again. So you have to move your inch, 2 inches, whatever it is, before you could turn again. Then you could keep going fast, then turn. It's totally.
So there's a compulsory forward move for each stage of movement. So you have to satisfy that before being able to make a 45 degree.
You can fire your weapons at any point in your activation. So it's totally even if you activate, you can fire your weapon straight away before you do the compulsory movement. You just have to do that compulsory movement in a straight line before you can finish.
As long as you satisfy the compulsory movement somewhere during the turn.
Yes. It works in alternating turns, similar to Rezolution. Again, we wanted that always being involved quickly in the action. The way it works, phase 1. Fast-moving cars, cruising movement. So if you have a fast-moving car, you move that first. When it comes back to you, if you haven't got any fast, but you've got a cruising, you move that next. It alternates until everybody's done their fast and cruising.
Well, that's really cool. So if you actually have like an initiative advantage for moving it.
Yeah. So if he had more fast-moving vehicles than you could finish your cruising before you finished all your fast, but you can't move on to phase 2 until he's finished all his fast and moves. So once all fast and cruising are dealt with, you then move to phase 2, which is slow-moving vehicles, pedestrians, flyers, walkers. So you have pedestrians. We haven't got any on the table because we demo with the vehicles. But we have pedestrian models. We have loner characters. I think a character like Mad Max would be classed as a loner. You could hire him in as part of your gang, and he would operate with you. So pedestrians can move. There are rules for people getting out of vehicles. So if you get out of the vehicle, you can run around. There are stats for all the characters in the vehicles to be able to move out of the vehicles. If there's a vehicle sitting on the side, the driver was dead, it's an opponent's vehicle, get out, it's a better vehicle, I'm going to have that one. Get in and steal that vehicle. There's a risk. That may be booby trapped, or a roll of dice, it may explode on it, but that's the risk you can take. It's a very cinematic. The cars will explode if things get down to 0 damage on the vehicle. They spin off in a direction, randomly determined direction, depending on how fast they're going. If they're going fast, they can move up to 3d6 in a direction. If they hit anybody on the way, ram that one, roll over, ram that one, keep going. So you end up with vehicles. We've ended up with games with everything just piled in the middle. Because but it's fun. There's also what we call devastating damage. When you roll for damage, you roll in d6. You're rolling 2d6 to try and get above their armour. Actually, you're rolling. I haven't had my first coffee this morning. When you're doing damage, you're going against their armour. So one dice. If this guy has an armour 7, you think, well, how can I get a 7 on a d6? Well, if you roll a 6, you roll it again. Okay. If that explodes up to 10 or more on the two dice, you do devastating damage. That's when things really start to happen. The devastating damage table does things like explosion. That car just explodes. You hit something critical. Right. It's on fire. Yeah. Tyre damage, axle damage, falling apart, armour's reduced. There's up to 10. You roll a d10. There's 10 options. One of them, if you get a 10, it's lucky escape. All the others have serious consequences. And they're cumulative as well. You could be on fire, you could have, your tyre could be damaged, you can get it again, your tyre's damaged again. You now have limited turns. Engine damage, you can't go as fast, you've lost the speed back. So things start to happen as the game continues on. So like Rezolution, things happen, there's consequences to being here. You can ram things, but when you ram, physics come in place. You probably do as much damage yourself as you do to the person you're ramming. But it's fun. We've had people at conventions playing it who are like cheering for that roll of one and were devastated to get the explosion going.
So when you have a class vehicle like this, is obviously an armored vehicle versus a vehicle like this. What kind of differences in the chassis are we going to see versus like a fast-moving light vehicle versus a very heavy?
This one will go fast. It's up speed will be a lot faster than this guy. His armour is a lot higher. With a ram on the front, he can plough through things. If this gets hit in a ram to a buggy, that's going to come off worse. But there will be damage to this. You can't just run into something and roll over it.
But this guy looks like he's specifically designed to ram into people. So
things like the utility truck. That's one of our best-selling vehicles actually, because it's so versatile. People have like converted it. They've rolled it down to make it look like an old Dodge truck. They've put things on the back. You can carry RPG teams in the back. They've taken in the starter box. You get 2 buggies and a utility truck. You get 2 of the spud guns. They've chopped them up and put them sticking out the roof of his gun. It's one of the most versatile models we have. Because it's resin as well. You can carve it.
So you said you have sort of like a mechanics gearbox in the rules where you can actually customize all of your vehicles?
Yes, it's called Max Body Shop. Basically, in Max Body Shop, there's a series of chassis. If you've chosen a Hot Wheel or Matchbox car to use, you could use the Hot Wheel car, buy some of the accessory packs. All the metal pieces we use for the resin cars are all sold as accessory packs. In Max Body Shop, you choose the chassis that matches the vehicle you want to create. You choose an engine out, the options that are allowed for that chassis. You then get weapons and equipment to kit out your vehicle. You don't pick a crew. All the character stats for all the crew, you can pick out like standard driver or hero driver or champion driver. They cost more, you can equip your crew, and then you can go out into the wastelands and use that vehicle. So it's a full customizable.
So is it just like the other game where you have a certain number of points per side that you assign, and you can really get really detailed with this stuff because you can customize every single vehicle that you have on your team.
We've got things like fire extinguishers, you've got equipment inside the vehicles, you've got extra armour, plated armour that can be added to the vehicles. They all cost money. The more you trick out your vehicle, the less you're going to have on the vehicle.
So you're going to have one really super tricked out vehicle against 5.
The thing to remember, as with Rezolution, the little guy can take out that big guy.
Especially the exploding dice.
Really, the exploding dice, you can take out with a pistol. If you keep exploding the dice, add devastating damage. Exploding dice here, but devastating damage here can really cause effect. It can have quite serious effect on the vehicle. So even though you've got things like the Maxwell or the Valiant, which are quite fast, tough cars, they can be taken out by a buggy.
So if people wanted to not use Matchbox cars and wanted to use these resin guys, where are they available? Are they available on your site as well?
All the resin cars that we do are all available, including the character models, the gyrocopter, all on our website.
Fabulous. So cost-wise, what are we looking at? Like, you have like a basic box set. What does that come with?
The battle box, which includes the starter rules, which is like just for the vehicles that are in there. You get the utility truck and you get 2 buggies. You get a rocket launcher and you get 2 spuds. So you can have 2 spud auto guns or you can have a rocket launcher. You get that in the box set, you get the starter rules, and that retails for $38, I believe.
So you get the starter rules, 3 resin vehicles with an extra option.
With bits and pieces as well. You get all these metal pieces like the bags and things, are all extra customizable pieces.
Oh, that's really cool. How about this game over here? What are you looking at?
The starter box of Rezolution, all the factions other than the Valacina, which would be the church faction, retail for $30. And for those you tend to get, depending on what the faction is, the Ronin you only get 5 figures because they're more higher points value. But for the CSO you get a marshal, you get 4 troopers, and you get like the hacker dudes who can actually hack as well. And you get a CD-ROM with all the carved terrain buildings in there. You can print out and make up your own terrain. You get our deviation dice, which is our patented dice for deviation, which has a dice within a dice with an arrow. And you get the CD-ROM and you get a little set of starter rules in the box. They retail for $30.
You get the cards with everything?
And you get the cards with them as well.
So those are really handy. I love games that actually have stat cards because you never constantly have to be looking at a sheet or a book. Just look at your cards.
Everything you need is on the
right there. Yeah, it's great. All right. Well, that's fabulous. Thanks so much for talking to us. And look for this stuff, man. It's awesome. It looks great, and it plays awesome. So go ahead and check it out on the website. Link out and check out this guy's stuff. It's great. Thanks for listening to Plus 10 Awesome.
Thank you very much. Yeah, that's fine.
Do you have a business card with your email
Yes, I
address?
do.
And I can send you the link to that.